Okay, here we have Mr. Doug Chittenden. Mr. Chittenden is a 9 index. Lowest he's ever been has been closer to a 7, but last couple of years he was actually as high as a 12, so he feels like he's in a pretty good middle spot right now. And same thing long term, looking to become more consistent. Would like to see a little bit more distance. He's seen a bit of a drop off last couple of years that just doesn't really seem to correlate with any lack of mobility changes or anything like that. And seems to fight a little bit of a fade that he's not a huge fan of, the occasional thin shot, and just overall inconsistencies that you don't like to see in someone that's a 9 that's looking to get even lower and try to get down to that 5-6 range, which is something that honestly most people in that 9-10 range aren't maximized. They're just comfortable where they are, and making the biggest step to trying to get better is really being able to take a look at your motion and see, okay, where are the inefficiencies. Mr. Chittenden has kind of one of the most common swing faults or kind of issues going on that we'll see in a lot of kind of your amateur member kind of weekend golfers, is just a little bit of lack of mobility, lack of kind of the proper posture to create the nice athleticism we're looking for, which has then kind of caused some things in his golf motion to become a little bit more hand-specific, arm-specific, and not really including the proper efficiencies and motions of the body that we're looking for. So we take a look on the right here. This is his down the line posture. And again, decent spine position, but you can kind of see this little excess roll right there. Not a huge fan of that, and that's just that little bit of that cross syndrome that you'll see from desk work, kind of sitting at the desk. Not maybe the proper amount of mobility and flexibility that we're looking for, but we can change that a little bit just by updating his posture. So we had talked about going forward, trying to eliminate a little bit of this flex right here, feeling a little bit more kind of straight on, getting a little bit more athletic in the lower body, which as a result will create more tilt in his upper body. Should position a little bit more, add a little bit more flexibility and rotation. So that would be one thing, is changing that posture. Take a look at his backswing here. Decent takeaway. He's always been working on trying to get that club a little bit more down the line and straight down the target line in his takeaway. But there are some good things here. The face is a little bit open to the path, or open to his arm position, which is one of the biggest causes for his fade. So we immediately just worked on keeping that a little more square, and he started seeing that ball starting on line and actually turning a little bit left without making any other massive changes. So that was a really good sign right there, that he understands kind of where the face is and what's going on there. But just seeing this club face being a little bit more toe down will be a big help just to improving that overall position. But you can already see, just looking at his takeaway, he's kind of standing very tall, right? He's not really creating any athletic turn or any sort of motion there that we'd look for in kind of a maximum distance. And as a result, the club kind of just rolls up to the top. And yes, this is a decent position in terms of club face, right? So the club face is in a pretty decent position in terms of his arm and everything. However, you can just see how close it is to his body, really lacking that efficient, proper rotation club position at the top with some extension, some width, some arc. Those are the things that we're seeing that are just a little bit of an issue, which as a result, as we start the downswing, right, there's that motion that you could almost see coming. So he gets a little bit steep, borderline over the top. I'm not a big proponent of talking about being over the top. I just refer to this as he's just steepening the shaft, because if you're over the top aggressively, you're going to see shots off the heels, shanks, things like that, where he's not doing that. He's just coming in extremely steep, and then as a result, body has to kind of stop its rotation, swings across the golf ball a little bit, saves it, and then you can see the club face trying to stay as square as possible to kind of hold that finish for him. So he hits those kind of high spinning, typically shots with his middle short irons that just lack that real distance that you're looking for. He has decent control of them, right? So he kind of talked about he doesn't really lose golf balls a lot, which you can see, because the club face really doesn't do a lot of rotation through impact, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we just would like to see it rotating in a different way. We'd like to see it actually moving a little bit more down the line, a little more almost into out is what it's going to feel like to him, and as a result, his body's going to create a lot more rotation. So from the down the line view, it's keeping that toe down a little on that takeaway, feeling a little bit more of an athletic turn to the top, kind of separate the arms from the body a little bit more, create a little bit more width, a little more depth, which in turn will get that club a little bit more shallow, a little bit more on plane, and then the transition will be the most difficult step, where as we come through impact, we'd like to see that club escape more this way, right, as opposed to going this way. So I know it's a lot of lines, but that's really the biggest thing there. Now we'll take a look at from the face-on view. And same thing, you kind of see just the position, very squatty, right, with the knees here, kind of almost borderline bow-legged. So straighten those legs out. That'll definitely help create a little more athleticism. No real pivot here, just more of kind of a slide in position. So we had talked about trying to get that that right hip a lot deeper, and also getting this left shoulder, instead of pointing more this way, trying to get it to point more behind the golf ball, which in turn create a little more rotation, a little more pivot, just getting more behind the golf ball. Because same thing, as we start the downswing now, the shaft steepens, right? So now the shaft is very close to our body here. We'd like to create more separation, more out this way if we can, a little more width. So that way at impact we're not casting that club a little bit at the end. You can see the face is trying to stay very square here. And then through impact, same thing. He tries to hold it square. But again, a motion here that he'll be a 9 all his life. He wouldn't really see any changes here if he didn't change anything, right? So if that was where he was comfortable, he wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Just keep doing what he's doing. But for someone that wants to get to that 5, 6, even lower range, it's going to be, okay, we need to make this golf swing and motion more efficient, more effective, more body usage, so that way they can kind of really complement the hands a lot better than they are right now. Because right now this swing is very dependent on timing, coming in steep, trying to steer the club through impact and save it. And that's really the biggest changes. So improve that posture, get a little bit taller in that posture, a little more athletic in the lower body, create more of a deeper pivot to the top, and then start really feeling that club shallowing out as we move through impact. And we'll continue to follow up and hope to see some progress.